Hey guys, Big Trev here again, and we're going to talk about the Brantley Gilbert Big Machine Brickyard 400. Kyle Busch started on the pole, and he led until the first caution, which was on lap 9. Corey LaJoie hit the wall in turn 3, and during that caution there was a thunderstorm that led to a 2-hour red flag. And the restart came on lap 18. The competition caution was moved from lap 25 to lap 30. Kyle Busch led for a while there. Chase Elliott had some kind of engine. They originally thought it was ECU or voltage problem, and then it turned out to be an engine problem. So we had the competition caution. We had a yellow for Reagan and Yaley and Jeffrey Earnhardt. We had another yellow for J.J. Yaley again. Dale Earnhardt Jr., lap 76. He had a run off of turn 2. Trevor Bayne just slowed down in the corner. He got in the back of him and punched out the radiator. He said he had damaged the front bar behind that protects the radiator behind the front bumper. So unfortunately he was out, and it was kind of a shame for his last Brickyard 400. So then we restarted again, and from lap 81 on to the end of the stage it was green, and the turning point of the race was a restart on lap 111, right on the restart, and that's with about 48 laps to go. Martin Truex was the leader at the time. He actually beat Kyle Busch out of the pits on the previous caution, or 2 cautions before the one I'm going to tell you about here. So anyway, Martin Truex restarted on the inside, Kyle Busch restarted on the outside, and going into turn 1, Martin Truex got loose on the inside as Kyle Busch went to pass him on the outside, and they both wrecked, and the 2 strong cars of the race out of contention. And after that, it kind of settled down. There was the restart came. The caution lasted 8 laps. The restart came at lap 120. That's about 40 to go, and then with 30 to go, green flag pit stops begun, and with just outside of 10 laps to go, it was about 12 laps to go or so, a big wreck happened. Paul Menard slid a little bit sideways, and when that happened, he slowed down, and Clint Boyer had nowhere to go, so he hung a left, and when he hung a left, he got hooked, and it was a huge crash. Kurt Busch wrecked hard. He piled right into Boyer, and that brought out the second red flag of the day. After that, we had a restart. And here's also the turning point. When that wreck happened, before I get to the restart, when the wreck happened with Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Eric Jones, and Boyer, when that happened, Kasey Kahne was on pit road. And because he's on pit road, the field slows on the caution. But he was pitting on the turn 4 side of pit road, which means all he had to do was beat the leader to the start-finish line. If he had to pit past the start-finish line, he would have had to beat the leader off of pit road, basically. If the leader would go by, he would have had to beat the leader out of the pits. So, because he is on the turn 4 side, all he had to do was just go a little bit, cross the finish line on pit road, which is a yard of bricks, and sure enough, he stayed on the lead lap. So after the red flag, under that caution, there was some pit stops. Kasey Kahne and Ryan Newman stayed out, though. Keselowski came in as the leader, but Kahne and Newman stay out and they assume the lead. Then after 2 laps of racing, or 1 lap of racing, whatever it was, Kyle Larson, sorry here, I'm outside, there's mosquitoes. Kyle Larson hit the wall. He had a flat, or he had contact with someone, hit the wall, and his car started on fire. Then, with about 2 laps to go, Jimmie Johnson, he restarts the race, and his car was smoking on the restart. It's actually still smoking under caution. The broadcast didn't say it, but it was definitely smoking. So he restarted, and Jimmie Johnson going 3 wide for the lead against Kahne and Keselowski. He was going 3 wide on the inside. Spun. He had an oil line, got in his tires, and he spun. So that is Jimmie Johnson out then. And that set up overtime. If you're unfamiliar with overtime, you have, say, the caution is out with 2 laps to go. Well, under the old rules, 10 years ago or so, or not even, well, more like about 12, 13, 14 years ago, what they would do is they would just ride around the last few laps behind the pace car, and the race would end under caution. The idea of the overtime is to give the fans a green flag finish. So if there's 2 laps to go, a wreck happens, caution is out, they extend the race, they do the cleanup, and they line up the cars, and they restart the race. Once the leader passes a certain line on the track, on the back straightaway, usually towards turn 3 on an oval. Each track, the overtime line is a little different, but once the leader crosses that, it's determined a clean restart. If the caution comes out before the leader gets to that line, guess what? We rack them up and we do another overtime. And we'll do that as many times as needed until they get the clean restart. But if the leader passed that overtime line, the race is official. NASCAR uses scoring loops and videotape replays to determine the finishing order. So, first attempt at overtime, right on the restart, a wreck. Blaney, Bain, Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola, the 55 car, and Michael McDowell had a little contact in it, or he did have contact in it. So, and it was that led to the 3rd red flag. At this time, keep in mind that they had so much it was a front straightaway, so they had to do a lot of cleanup. That's why they red flagged it. Normally they wouldn't do that, but Indianapolis is a narrow track, and that's why they had to do it that way. And so they red flagged it. Then they got it going, and because of that's 3rd red flag. Now, because of the previous 2 red flags and the rain delay that ran nearly 2 hours, darkness is becoming an issue, and darkness was becoming an issue, and they were not sure if there was another crash, that they would be able to restart the race again. So then the second attempt at the green-white checkered, Brad Keselowski was leading, and Kasey Kahne takes the lead. He crossed the overtime line, and at that time the 14th caution came out. Hamlin and Menard crashed, and Kasey Kahne wins the race. And I really think it was that strategy, that he was on pit road when the caution came out, and he only had 2 lap worse tires than the other guys, so that's why he was able to stay with them. The broadcast was very good at documenting that, and I will say NBC did a pretty good job. But Kasey Kahne snaps a 102 race winless streak, his first win since Atlanta in 2014. So Kasey Kahne, I have the top 10 finishing order on the bottom of the screen. Couple notables. Blaney was out with a crash. Johnson was out with an engine. Larson out with a crash. Kurt Busch crashed. Truex crashed. Kyle Busch crashed. Earnhardt Jr. Had the radiator. And Chase Elliott had the engine failure. So those were, and I put those guys in another column because those guys were doing good. So this definitely shook up the, it really shook up the not the chase, the playoffs. There we go. It really shook up the playoffs. Because now what that did with Kahne's win is that takes away one more driver that can get in on points. So the guys that win a race are sitting good. Matt Kenseth, he's only 33 points above the bubble, so, or the cut line. If he has a bad finish or something happens, it's not good. If he blows an engine and then he wrecks the next week, so say at Pocono he blows a motor, and at Watkins Glen he misses shift and gets wrecked on the drop of the green flag, he's done. He's going to be below the cut line. So I'll be honest with you, all in all, this is shaping up to be a crazy NASCAR season, and I enjoy it. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series is bringing a lot of excitement. So there was 14 cautions. That was a track record. 55 laps were ran behind the pace car. 18 cars were listed out at the finish. So only 16 cars were on the lead lap. That's pretty low. But anyway, so I don't want to drag this on too long because it's already been, and I really didn't get to talk too much about who was strong. I mainly talked about the race itself, and that's kind of what I wanted to focus on because it was a really, really crazy, the craziest Brickyard 400 I've ever seen. So by far, very exciting. The stages and all that stuff played out really, really good. And I will say, I was impressed. I was also impressed with the broadcast coverage. I'm going to give NBC an 8 out of 10 on their broadcast. And mainly because they didn't have too many commercials. They really didn't. Once you got about 30 to go, not too many breaks at all, even under the red flags. So it was pretty good that the actual race coverage. I will say they should have stayed on NBC to interview Kasey Kahne, but because they were already 2.5 hours behind schedule, they had to get off the air, and all the post-race interviews were on NBCSN, so, which is okay. But anyway, that's going to do it. We move on now to Pocono once again, and that is this Sunday. Pocono, NBCSN. We were just there about 6 weeks ago. So we'll see, and I believe, yeah, it was Ryan Blaney that won that one. So we'll see how Blaney does this time, and a couple other guys. Look forward to Pocono. Catch you later, folks. Thanks for watching.